she was too nervous to have a piano teacher and sit one-on-one with someone who she felt was a stranger. And now she loves going to her lessons. Seeing my kid go through that, oh, I'm not alone. Not that you want other people to deal with it, but if they are, it's nice to meet them.
It's about building the coping skills and understanding yourself and knowing how to, whether it's bridge down, but be able to cope through it. Like you said, do you need someone to sit with you? Maybe change the order. Nothing wrong with that.
Welcome back to another episode of the Unspoken Words Podcast, a new edition production. Unspoken Words is the #1 podcast on selective mutism, hosted by Dr. Elisa Shippon-Blum and the Smart Center. This episode features our latest installment of our Shining Stars segment, where we sit down with former Smart Center patients or their parents and discuss how they overcame selective mutism. Today, we meet Jenny Manis, mom to Emily. Emily was 6 years old when her parents realized that she was struggling to interact with anyone outside of the home. In this episode, Dr. E and Emily's mom, Jenny, discuss Emily's SM journey, the importance of parental involvement, embracing our children's unique gifts, and much, much more. Before we get started, remember, if you have any questions on anything you hear in today's episode, please head to selectivemutismcenter.org/ask Dr. E, that's ASKDRE, and enter your questions in the form. We read all of your submissions and do our best to answer them on podcast episodes, blog posts, and on social media. Speaking of social media, for the best of this episode and every episode of Unspoken Words, make sure to follow the podcast on Instagram and on YouTube. We are at Unspoken Words _podcast on Instagram and Unspoken Words podcast by Dr. E on YouTube. All right, without further ado, please enjoy the latest episode of Unspoken Words.
Hey listeners, before we get started, I want to tell you about Communicamp, our 3+ day intensive group treatment and all-day parent education and support program designed to help parents, children, and teens overcome selective mutism, social anxiety, and extreme shyness. It's over 16 hours of parent education and support, as well as 16+ hours of treatment for your child or teen. Spaces are limited and spots book fast. To learn more, please find Communicamp in this episode's description or head to communicamp.org and complete our interest form, and our team will be in touch. Let's help your child or teen find their voice. Okay, now enjoy the episode. Hi, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Unspoken Words. And today we're going to have one of our Shining Star episodes. And I am honored and excited to meet with Jenny Manis. Welcome, Jenny.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. I always say at every episode, I'm super excited, and I am, because for me, this being my life's work and seeing the results of my life's work, and you and your daughter, Emily, are that, results. It's wonderful, because the purpose of this is to give people hope and to help our listeners realize your child can indeed overcome selective mutism or reach their capacity. So I always say reach their capacity, because we do have listeners that have children or teens, or there's adults listening that may have some underlying challenges that they're always going to have to deal with in some sort of way. So whether it's learning challenges, speech and language challenges, some developmental delays, we help them reach their capacity. So I just want to be real with our listeners. And, I remember you from Communicamp last year in 2023. And I remember meeting Emily as well. And I'm just excited to talk to you. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and help out other parents.
Yeah, this is wonderful. So tell us a little about Emily now. Tell us about what Emily's doing now.
Emily has friendships, play dates. She goes to activities, and she used to always want to go and then get there and wouldn't really be able to do it. But now she goes, bye, Mom, go pick me up later. She's very involved in what she does. She gives it 100%. She wanted to play piano. Now she can play piano, because she was too nervous to have a piano teacher and sit one-on-one with someone who she felt was a stranger. And now she loves going to her lessons. She loves going to dance. She's begging to go to gymnastics. I'm like, okay, well, we got to make room in our schedule. She goes to karate. She absolutely enjoys having friends over, going to a new friend's house. She can speak to anybody, ordering in a restaurant. We went to Greece this summer. She had never been there before, and we have family members there that she had never met. And I didn't know how that would be. It's a different country. It's a different language. And as confident as we are in her changes, it's a big difference. She was trying to learn Greek words to greet the taxi driver. She was still trying to order off the menu, and she connected so well with new family members. I couldn't believe it. It was better than I could have hoped. But I wish I could have told myself that would happen someday when I was in the depths of worry and concern.
Oh, it's so interesting you say that, because it's what I wish I knew then, what I know now type of attitude, right? But it's interesting because I say that a lot about myself and with my daughter, Sophie. And I think to myself, if I knew that she was going to be completely functioning like you're seeing with your daughter, I wouldn't have had the level of passion to figure this out. And you may not have put in all that effort. So it was your efforts. It was what you did that got her here. You know what I mean?
It wasn't easy, but also we connected more. I got to know her on a whole different level. She's so aware of her emotions because of the scale that you taught. Where are you on the bridge, and how are you feeling? How many we did it with how many fingers are you feeling? She, even though she's not mute anymore, she's very aware of what her feelings are and can help, communicate those to work through any problem. So it's actually a long-lasting gift that we have that we can apply to other areas.
And I hear that a lot. So her ability to understand herself, understand her feelings, that's called coping skills, to be able to know, I feel a certain way, and, realizing, well, that's okay. I feel this way. Here's some things I can do, and trust my feelings, not fight them. And I mean, what I'm hearing from you is just the amount of confidence she seems to have. Like, to me, just the sense I'm getting is she's exuding this sense of confidence, and she has the sense of confidence, and she has confidence.
Absolutely. And what was heartbreaking before was I would see the confidence at home, and we'd leave the house and people would say things about her that I'm thinking, no, but that's not who she is. That's not true, or, wow, she's so serious. And there's nothing wrong with being serious. But at the same time, I'm thinking, that's not the whole picture. She was a goofball 20 seconds ago, making us all laugh in the car. But she would be unrecognizable to me when we left the house. And in school, they had said, in daycare and preschool, they treated her as if she was defiant. That was really hard because I know she wasn't defiant. And they had been telling me, maybe you're spoiling her. Maybe, I know I wasn't spoiling her. I teach high school psychology. I know not to give in to tantrums. I know, not from my high schoolers, but I mean, just from the basic psychology, I don't give in to the tantrums. I don't know what to do. I don't know why she's getting so upset.
She was telling you that look, listen, and learn. She was telling you what she was feeling, her frustrations by acting out, and listening to her, you listening to her and trying to figure it out. Because you can't just stop someone from feeling that way. You need to understand. Yeah. So tell us. So I know you came to the Smart Center in February of 2023. And then you went to camp in March of 2023, and then you had a follow-up, and we haven't seen you since. So we're assuming she's where she is because of what you learned and all that you did. So what brought you to the Smart Center? I asked because I know there are, there's a lot of programs out there, and they're wonderful programs, and you found us, and I'm grateful because I had the opportunity to work with you. So from my standpoint, thank you. But tell us, what made this different for you to come to?
We knew that it was time. When she was initially diagnosed, her psychiatrist was concerned that even if she started therapy for it, she just wouldn't speak at therapy. So he said, you're going to be driving around a lot, spending a lot of time for her to sit on a couch and not benefit from anything. So we really need to make sure that she's at a point where she's ready and she wants this. And she had reached that point. And I didn't go anywhere else. I had been already researching where to go, what methods I thought would work best for our family and for her. And I thought, let's try this. Let's start here. Why not start with what I feel connects with us the most? And I loved the idea that parents would get a chance to meet as well, and that you would work with the parents on the side and not just with her, because we are the ones who are with them most of the time. And the best thing that happened was after the first day, she just said, Mom, thank you for finding this place and bringing me here. I mean, she knew immediately, Yeah, it was for her. And what was incredible was walking in on that Friday night, she couldn't wait. She was counting down to Communicamp, and I'm going to meet kids like me, and this is going to change my life and the whole thing. And we walked in and she just turned to stone, but it was the first time in our lives. And I got emotional looking around thinking, I don't have to explain this to anybody. Everybody had the same, like, no, I swear she was excited 5 seconds ago, I promise. And I didn't have to do that. And she warmed up seeing that there were other kids like her. And I immediately, looking around that room, was like looking in a mirror of my life. And I had hope that, okay, we're not in this alone. The next morning you said, this is not about getting them to talk the second they leave camp. This is about building comfort, and this is about building the bridge. And then I had apologized to her that evening and said, Emily, I'm sorry for all the times I kept asking you if you talked or will you talk, or trying the positive reinforcement a little too much, right? You skip to the stickers and come on, if you go talk to the guy at the store, I'll give you a prize. And that could work, but she wasn't comfortable enough for it to work long term. So it was about going back and building that foundation.
No, you just explained it so well, because I know, and you know, the end goal is to become a confident, verbal, social communicator.
Mm-hmm.
And you definitely can talk about talking when the child is ready to talk about talking. But when you have a child that's shut down, unable to even engage, they have difficulty handing and taking and being comfortable around peers and responding to their teacher, even in a nonverbal way or just barely verbal, like, you can't push it, because what you're doing is you're disrespecting where they're at. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about talking when they're ready to. I had a child yesterday in my session, and we're talking about talking. We're talking about increasing her volume and standing further away so her voice is louder. So we're there and able to talk about it, and she understands it. And the
Mm-hmm.
key is, which you've experienced and shared, and that I love hearing, is that she understands herself. And the bridge is such a means of control for not only you and for me, but for her. It helped her realize, wow, I am on the bridge. And yes, I'm not able to be, comfortable verbally yet or responding in this big full sentence, but I'm able to use a peer as an intermediary, or I'm able to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, you're able to see that you are on the bridge, or shaping sounds into words for some kids. But I love that. And for me, this is just, frankly, music to my ears, because you grasp what I needed you to grasp. But I do need to say something to you. You have a way of parenting. And I just did an episode with Dr. Jenna, my daughter, who's joined the Smart
Mm-hmm.
Center full time, and you've met her, on authoritative parenting and the way to parent children in general, and
Mm-hmm.
how important it is. And I can tell just by the way we had spoken before and how you know, explain all this, that your way of parenting, and probably a lot from who you are as a person, but what you've learned, like you said, over the course of your career, is to be very authoritative, not authoritarian, not permissive. And so by having a way of talking to her, being very open, being very grateful, being very understanding, but yet setting the boundaries, but in a way that she has choices, and just really getting to know her where she feels safe to express herself. I'm going to tell you, that is so key, that you're at the starting gate when you came to the
Thank you.
Smart Center, because you already had this parenting. And so by her being open to you, by saying, Mom, I want help, she felt safe to say that to you without fear of you saying, well, you're going to talk, right? You're going to do it. You're going to do it. Like, we're here to help you talk. Like, you're going to get talking, or you need to do it. We've got to go. Like, you weren't like abrasive in your approach. We see parents that get very, very overwhelmed by this process, and I can hear how you talk. So kudos to you, Jenny,
Thank you.
for parenting her in a way that is very understanding and very, validating to her, and making her feel that it's okay. And that's a safety that she has to open up to you. So do you know where I'm going? I mean, you understand where I'm going,
I
right?
I really appreciate that. And it wasn't, I mean, there's times I have a sticker I have up in my classroom that says growth isn't linear, and it's a butterfly that's kind of swirling on it's an upward trajectory, but it's got its loops, to remind myself mostly and my students that we do have our days that aren't going to be perfect. And I looked back on some days that I really, when I especially didn't know what was going on with her, I did want to make sure I apologized to her, so she knows that, hey, we didn't know, but when you know better, you do better. And I try to go into everything with that mindset that maybe today wasn't a perfect day. No day really is perfect, but there were moments in the past where I felt like, oh, I should have handled that better, but I didn't know. I did the best with what I knew. And even having a conversation about that, about those moments in the past, I think were healing for both of us, because I really didn't, when I didn't know that she was selective mute and I was trying to work through it, I didn't have the methods that I learned at Communicamp. You're doing the best you can with what you've got, but now you know better. But I really enjoyed the parent portion and the parent training. And I think that was probably one of the best things I've ever done.
Thank you. No, it's so important to us because you are the facilitators, right? You're the educators to others, to family and friends, to teachers. Of course, we help with teachers too when needed, but you are that person. You are the one, basically, you're living with her. We're only, so that all day parent education for us is just so critical to give you that, the education, the hope, the support, and you got it. And I'm just so thrilled. And so, like, one of the things you were saying is that, so tell me about what she felt like when she found her voice. Tell me about the steps that like she's taken since camp.
I'll even start with at camp, because she very much was a child who wanted to have friendships. She did. And they tended to be with kids who were the opposite of her and wouldn't give up on her very easily, mostly because of, in the sense of social cues. If I'm reaching out to talk to someone and they completely don't respond, I'm not going to keep trying. I mean, I get the cue that, all right, maybe they don't want to talk to me. She had shared with me that was something painful for her, because she thought I watched them walk away, but there's nothing more in the world than I want to say hi back to them. Or, yes, I will play with you on the playground. And when you watch them walk away, Mom, it's the worst feeling. That broke my heart. And so when we were at camp, one of the things you suggest is, listen, camp ends at 2:00 sometimes. Go with the other families and try your new skills. And there was a girl that she had connected with and a mom I had connected with. And we decided to meet in the hotel lobby. And I had brought Rainbow Loom bracelets with me. I keep them in my car at all times now. But I had them with me just for thinking like, oh, we're in the hotel at night watching TV or something. And we had them as our shared task. And the mom and I decided to practice on each other's kids with our skills and watch the girls practice with each other. It was beautiful. And the mom and I kept kicking each other under the table, like, look, it's working, it's happening. Or we were reminding each other of certain things. If one of us tried a little too hard, we might look at the other one and the other one be like, I don't think we were supposed to do it that way. But there was no wrong. There's trying, right? And then we decided to go out to dinner and have them practice everything, that we learned about going out to dinner. And they got to practice together. And then seeing those two girls together who knew they had the same issues, but they wanted the same things, laughing at the restaurant, talking and being noisy like kids are supposed to be. I'm thinking, my dream has been to tell you to be quiet in a restaurant. And here it is. But we didn't want to tell them. We're like, let's not discourage them. Let them go. And we've stayed in touch. And the girl was from a different state, and they actually stayed in touch on Messenger Kids, and they reach out to each other, and the mom and I will text every now and then. But that was really a huge turning point. It was at camp, seeing her use those skills right away. But the important thing was the other mother and I also wanted to practice, and we found each other as a safe place to do that.
No, that's wonderful. One of the things I share with you at camp and our families is that sense of social identity. We often feel so alone in our suffering, especially with selective mutism. It's not like every day you see like 3 or 4 kids that have this, if you know one at all, and it's usually not someone your child's age. So one of the most wonderful parts about Communicamp is the social identity and connection that you feel with the parents all day for 3+ days, and connecting with them, and the whole support network, right?
Yeah.
But the children feel that in the room. They connect. They see, wow, like that little girl, that little boy, that child, that teen over there that feels exactly like I feel. This is such a comforting feeling. I mean, I'm not alone. And so that for sure is really, really important. And she found a friend that she identified with. And I think that's wonderful. So
yeah. And if I felt that way as an adult,
yes,
seeing my kid go through that, oh, I'm not alone. Not that you want other people to deal with it, but if they are, it's nice to meet them. To imagine on her level who she is dealing with it, have a room full. And she tried so hard every day. She tried to practice all the methods, and then she figured out which ones she liked the best personally for her. And we told her teacher about them, and she just flew. They're like the butterfly thing. It's not linear, but she had
got her wings.
She got her wings, and she had way more good days than tough days. But when she had a tough day, we were able to talk about it. What made that a tough experience for you? The second day, and my husband had lived in Philadelphia for a little bit, so he was excited to go out. And I forgot the name of the place, but it's like got all the markets inside, and it's really crowded. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay. Let's go there. And I said, wait, we just learned about loud and crowded, but let's practice it. So we went, and she started clinging to me, and then we did the finger feelings, and I had to remember the things that we talked about. So, well, I'm gonna get my list out, and then I said, "Is it too loud? It's really loud. Okay, let's find a quieter spot." Yeah. But then we did hand over takeover. She wanted to buy something. I gave her my credit card. I said, "Go ahead, hand it to the person." So I wasn't expecting her to. I changed my expectations. I didn't lower them. I changed them.
Oh, I love that.
So it was okay. Well, what can you do in this place? You are feeling uncomfortable, and we will not stay here for a long time, but there's going to be loud places. So what do we do when we're stuck in one? Yep. And she felt so much more comfortable just knowing I knew what to do. It's like she trusted me more in these situations. And the other good thing was we let her brother come to one of the parent meetings. He sat for the first time in his life quietly. So he's the opposite. I remember the first day you said, how many of your children have a sibling who's loud and boisterous and not shy? And most hands went up, and he was that sibling. But he enjoyed learning what to do to be there for her. So it was like the whole family being involved in what to do to help her and support her. So he learned, I'm not supposed to jump in and finish her sentence, but he can be the verbal intermediary, and then that gave him a special role in helping her as well. So she really saw the whole family was in on this with her, and that helped too.
Oh no, that's just wonderful. Before you went to Communicamp, I'm hearing what you're saying with the loud, large, lots of people environments, the 3 L's. You had the selective mutism evaluation. And one of the great things about that is that we learn about factors into why a child may have developed and why SM may be continuing, right? Mm-hmm. And so she is a very sensory sensitive child, and that may never change. And being a highly sensitive individual is a gift as well. You're usually very perceptive. You're very aware. You're empathetic. You can see and feel deeply, and you really, I see that. So being a sensitive individual can be a gift, right?
Absolutely.
With 100% a gift, but it also can be difficult because you are that sensitive and get overwhelmed easier. So knowing what makes you feel overwhelmed or shut down. And like you said, the louder, the larger. And she was very sensitive and is very sensitive to the sounds. And that creates this shutdown mode. So her awareness to that alone brings down the anxiety and fear. And with that alone, because when you're anxious, you're shut down too, right? Sometimes.
Absolutely.
So once you understand, that level of anxiety goes away or much less. So yes, you're dealing with the sensory, but your awareness, I love it. Like we went to, a different section, maybe not as loud. Maybe you went during an off hour instead of during the crowded time, Saturday at 2:00. These are things you do. It doesn't mean she won't be going to those places. And from what you're sharing with me, it sounds like she's adapting, and many individuals grow into their sensory system. So it sounds like she's doing that or done that. Hey listeners, we'll get back to the episode in a second. I want to tell you about Communicamp, our popular 3+ day intensive group treatment and all-day parent education and support program designed to help parents, children, and teens overcome selective mutism, social anxiety, and extreme shyness. Over 3+ action-packed days, your child or teen will engage in immersive activities guided by expert clinicians that build confidence and communication skills in a supportive, fun, and collaborative environment. Spaces are limited and spots book up fast. To learn more, please find Communicamp in this episode's description or head to communicamp.org and complete our interest form, and our team will be in touch. Let's help your child or teen find their voice at Communicamp. Let's get back to the episode.
Well, can I share with you something amazing that had happened the following November? So we went in March to the Smart Center, and then that November we went to Disney World, and then I emailed the center immediately with this story.
Oh,
My daughter
I remember.
she loves animals. And she actually admitted that one of the reasons she connects with them is because she sees them as selective mute too. They already have so much they want to say and they can't get it out, Mom. And I thought that was sweet. But like you said, she's very sensitive, and I think that's a beautiful thing. It really can be a beautiful thing. And we went to the bird show at the Animal Kingdom, and for people unfamiliar, they teach birds how to do tricks, and it's a very crowded stadium, and they get audience volunteers to come up and participate and do some of the tricks with the birds. And she raised her hand, stood up, raised her hand. They called her to the front of this huge stadium-like place in Disney World, so crowded. And they asked her name. She said it in the microphone. She did the trick. She came running back. I mean, I was shaking. I could not believe it. Mm-hmm. And she said it was the best day of her life, because she said, I know that if we came here before, I never would have raised my hand and I would have regretted it. And now I know I can do these things. And talk about loud and crowded and people. And she gets up and can say her name. I mean, for me, that she raised her hand was more than enough. They gave her a little certificate. And for me, I'm like, this is better than a high school diploma or a college diploma. It really was one of the best moments that we knew she really was on a great path, and she was ready to fly.
And it's interesting because I do say for many of our anxious kids, even our sensory kids, that idea of using the cortex and thinking, it's almost like you're going through it. So there may be a lot going around, but you get so focused cognitively on something that you almost put up these little barriers. And so it sounds like she was motivated, she was interested, she was excited, she was very focused, and that allowed her to be able to do what she did, which was just amazing.
And she had the confidence. For me, without the bridge, I mean, there were times that she was a 3 before we came, but it was not steady. It's almost like a house that doesn't have a solid foundation under it, and it's just on slab. And it seems like it's up, but it's not going to last long. And so making sure we went back to where she needed to be, like a sliding scale when she needed to be there. I didn't see it as, oh, but she is talking, so we need to stay here. Why should we go back to that? You had explained it so beautifully. All of the presenters had explained it so beautifully, why there are times we need to go back. And then we really made those other stages solid to the point where now that bridge really was sturdy, and the house was not just on some piece of slab. So it without going back on those steps. So even if a kid is talking here and there, I guess somebody could say, oh, I guess she's fine. Maybe he or she doesn't need to go through that whole process. I would argue better to do it than not do it, because we could really identify where those areas were that she needed more time with. I wouldn't even call them weaknesses. I would just say she needed more time there.
No, I mean, an example I'm thinking of is that a child has, let's say Emily had a friend she was verbal with and comfortable with, and she was initiative and elaborative and comfortable. But then she sees the child in class and they're sitting in a larger group and she's not as comfortable being verbal, but the teacher knows to sit her near her peer. So although Emily maybe at the time wasn't able to answer in a large group, the teacher could ask a question a certain way, right? And then prompt her, tell Rebecca or tell me. And so she's still functioning, she's still verbal, but maybe she has the safety of using a peer, or maybe she prepared in advance and had a script read. I mean, there's ways to bridge down that allow you to have those skills that you see, oh, I can do it. My anxiety, I thought it was going to be a 4, but it was really a 2. I realize I can do it. So it's all these things fitting together that make the difference, and that being okay to bridge down, big deal. So you bridge down.
Something you had said at Communicamp to the parents was, it's not enabling. Enabling is saying, fine, you don't have to talk. This is not enabling. This is supporting and providing. And that made a big difference to me. And when I talked about it with her teachers, that please don't see any of this as we're trying to enable her. This is going to get her going. This is warming her up to build her confidence. And she might have needed to use it once in the day, once in the morning. And then it just opened up the gates for her to be able to continue talking. You had mentioned something about being with a peer that reminded me before Communicamp, because, everybody does the whole exposure thing, right? But if you do it wrong, it's not going to help. I had been signing her up for things like a baking class or fashion sewing classes. And I thought, I'm not going to put her in at the same time as her friends. I'm going to put her in with kids she doesn't know. And then she's forced to talk to new people.
Yeah.
terrible idea. But
Yeah,
I have to forgive myself. I didn't know. And it's my own therapy I had to do. And it wasn't working. And then when we went to Communicamp and you talked about having a friend, a whisper buddy, a verbal intermediary, because then they're talking to that child. And now it's easier to talk to a third child in the group, a fourth child in the group, or that child might be able to talk to the other kid and bring your child into the conversation. I hadn't seen it that way. And also now she's not the kid who's just in the corner not speaking and people think they can't talk to her. Right. So I thought, oh man, I really messed that up. But you move forward and you try again. Yeah. And no, it was amazing because when I did put her in with a friend with some, in those activities again, she did make friends with all the other kids too. And there were people who run those events at the rec center who would pull me aside and say, I can't believe she's the same girl. She is so different in the best way. She still has her kind, sweet, hardworking self, but they said it's amazing to see her go around to help other kids or initiate a conversation. And these are people that had seen her change. And it was amazing to hear that.
Oh, that's so great. I mean, she probably would love working with some of these kids at camp now, letting them.
I think she would. I really think she would.
You have lots of kids come back and those, maybe you come on the panel, that panel is really important. I'm sure you love that, right? Where the parents talked and the kids talked.
And asking them questions. It was just like this podcast, and they were right there to answer the questions. It was really the whole way it's set up, really those 3 days, just those 3 days, taking those lessons and practicing them. It was just turned everything around for our whole family.
Thank you. No, I like I said, this for me being my life's work, I appreciate it because so much goes into the camps and we pour it all in and we want you guys to have these amazing experiences. So, but the key is not just going to camp, right? Like I'd say by far the majority feel like you, where I need to go, I need to learn, I need to implement. But there are these select individuals that think, you're going to kill my kid, right? She's going to come out completely verbal. She's going to do it all. And I got a call, I got to go take it. And every now and then you have a parent that doesn't go to parent education and we have to call them and go, nah, you got to be here. You can't not be here if you're coming to camp. And it happened at a recent camp where the parent wasn't there. No, it's not going to be that way. You've got to come and learn. So I appreciate so much that you took so much in and you're really amazing too, Jenny, because you have such a way of articulating it. I wish I could be taking more notes. Like,
thank you for saying that. But I don't hear it, but thank you.
No, really, just even like that part about the way you were talking about, which you heard me when I said, you're not enabling, and like you said, you're supporting them, you're understanding them, you're respecting them, you're respecting where they're at. Enabling means you like push them aside and you do and talk and even non-verbally engage with them, like that SM triangle where the person asks a question and you answer. That's enabling because no matter where that child is, you can bring them in to the social communication, no matter what stage they're at. Yeah. So enable means you're disrespecting the bridge altogether, or you're pushing to speak, push, and the child isn't there yet. And they don't have the skills. So what you do is you create an anxiety and avoidance, and it lowers their self-confidence and self-esteem. And you're spinning in it, and you're frustrated and they're avoidant and woo, it's just like, that's crazy, right? That's what happens.
And the other thing you also told us too is don't make it about talking. Make it about comfortable, or instead of saying, oh, wow, you talked, it's, you must have felt really comfortable. And I took that to heart. It really, hearing those things and then being able to apply them, because the way that camp is set up to end a little earlier so you can go out and explore, I'm taking full advantage of that and practicing with it fresh in your mind. There's no substitute for that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I want our listeners to understand that comfort is the prerequisite, right? So you have to be comfortable. So that anxious shutdown look, no, you can't do much with that. So comfort's critical. And one of the reasons we talk about, oh, you must have been comfortable, because so many of these kids, Jenny, all they think about is talk, you got to talk, when are you going to talk. So we've got to break the cycle. It's not that we won't talk about talking when they're ready or where they are on the bridge. If they're verbal and they're talking, it's, oh, you've crossed the bridge. You're using your words. Of course we talk about it, but we can't focus just on it. And if they're don't have a comfort, then you're basically, I mean, you're causing avoidance and more anxiety. If the comfort is not there and you're trying to, I love it when people talk about exposures and they're like, oh, we are going to a store. Well, how are you doing it? I'm having my daughter go up and ask for yada, yada, yada. No preparation, no scripting, no talking about the bridge, no understanding. And the child doesn't do it sometimes, and most of the time. Child feels like a failure. The parents are frustrated. I mean, this is a cycle.
The person that we had spoken to before we came to camp and we had like a pre-meeting had said, how big are the prizes when you get her to talk to someone at the store? And I said, oh, sometimes they got to be pretty big. He goes, the bigger the prizes, the more she's not ready to do that. That really clicked for me as well. So you were saying, go send them to the store and then you wonder why they're not doing it. She might just be scraping by to do it, but it doesn't mean she was ready for that. And you want them to be ready. So learning about the triggers was also huge for me. Yeah. So why isn't she speaking? And then there was also a really helpful video about background things like trouble with the bathroom, holding it in too much. Those things that you'd never think have anything to do with it. Right. That I'm listening to this, calling my husband, oh, Jeff, I feel like they watched a video of Emily's life and made this. And so connecting with that, also looking at the background stuff was big. So preparing her for the talk and where are you on the bridge or where do you think you were on the bridge when this happened was huge, but also remembering that the more I need to dangle the carrot, then she really needed to go back another step on the bridge. And then that's the goal.
And that's where the feelings come into play, because if you see that she's like a 5 out of 5, and as a little boy said to me the other day, I'm 100. It's 100. Like, why would you want someone to push through to the point where they're fearful and terrified? Because fear begets fear. When you feel fear, you remember fear. And that's where the comfort's critical, because if she can do something feeling comfortable, she's got more fuel to go to a little more uncomfortable, because you're going to be a little uncomfortable, right? But you don't want to be 100 out of 5.
Right.
Maybe a 3. You're going to be a little uncomfortable.
Right.
I mean, but because you can't always do things when it's a 0 scary, because there's no such thing. Life is about challenging yourself, but it's understanding what their challenges are and you listening and trusting your child, because that's important. And that's a whole thing in itself, when a child is always like, oh, I'm a 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5. When they're not, that just means the child feels pressure and they're telling their parent, I can't ever do it. Or the child that's like, it's a 0, it's a 0, it's a 0. And it's like, it's not a 0. That's them in denial and avoidance. So it's, how do you read these children to, guide them? And what do you need to do as a parent to change your ways and behaviors to support your child? Because they tell us everything, even without speaking, right?
Yeah, that was something I learned at the center too, right? How much was she telling me by not telling me anything in the moments where she couldn't speak? She was telling me something was wrong, but I didn't know what to ask and what to look for.
Look, listen, and learn. Unspoken words, right? That's why this podcast is called Unspoken Words.
Yeah.
Because they tell us everything that we need to know. We just have to to be wise and understand. And I love it. I mean, you've shared so many wonderful, wonderful things. I just love it. So tell me, there must be moments still that she feels some anxiety, and I mean, everybody does.
For sure.
You do, I do. So tell me about, like, I guess her social communication, she's there, but does she manifest like some social anxiety? I mean, she must still have some symptoms of that.
She certainly does. For example, she had a piano recital in a room she'd never been in. She's never seen this place before. It was the families are there. It's up on a stage. There's definitely some anxiety there for both of us. I wouldn't expect it to be different, but she was able to talk about it and say, Mom, I am so nervous. I'm going to do it, but I'm so nervous. And her piano teacher couldn't be kinder and more understanding, said, I'm going to sit next to you on the bench if you want to, so that she felt like she had someone there. And then the piano teacher got up and left after she started playing because she was fine. Yeah. But she was able to say where she was. And she said, I'm feeling, I don't remember exactly what number she said, but it was a higher number. And I said, okay, well, what can take it down? And she said, I think I just got to get up there and do it. I don't know I can take it down. But so she was able to say, yeah, I'm going to have anxiety. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to have to do it eventually at some point. And I had even said, not to enable, but I said, you can talk to her about changing the order, maybe what's going to make you more comfortable to do it. And she said, I think I just got to do it, Mom. But I'm sorry, it's the bell ringing at work. She said, I just got to get up there and do it, Mom. And she did great. She did great. She got up, she bowed, and now she's looking forward to the next one. So there's times where she said, I'm nervous before a dance recital even, or any other kind of thing. She'll recognize it. She'll state, I am nervous, but I'm just gonna go for it. And so she's learning that it doesn't mean she can't do it because she's nervous. It's just a part of a feeling that comes with the package. And when you're all done, you can look back on it that it's another thing you did. But that's her wisdom. That's not mine. She's the one who started to say it.
Oh, she's really, incredible. One of the reasons I brought that up is for our listeners to understand, we're not eradicating anxiety. Mm-hmm. We're helping them build coping skills to function. And Emily is clearly functioning socially, emotionally, academically, communicatively. So it's all about functioning. When you need a lot more of support and more support is when you're not functioning in a specific area. And so, yes, you're going to feel anxiety. You're going to feel sad some days. I mean, we're humans. So you're not eradicating it, and it's not necessarily shifting to something else, because somebody might say, well, it's going to shift somewhere else. No, not necessarily. It's about building the coping skills and understanding yourself and knowing how to, whether it's bridge down, but be able to cope through it. Like you said, do you need someone to sit with you? Maybe change the order. Nothing wrong with that. Because most of the time, like what you're experiencing with your daughter, they realize, nah, I don't need it. Because she's gained so much control over herself. She realizes, you know what? I can do this. Mm-hmm. And maybe without realizing it, she was like a 3 or a 4 and realized I can push myself when it's a 3 or a 4. But when I feel that 5, maybe I need to do X, Y, and Z in that situation. Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely. You're saying you can still do it. You just might have to find a different way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. A little divert to the left and a little right here and there.
And as adults without selective mutism, we need that adjustment as well.
Absolutely.
So why not give her that freedom?
No, for sure. No, I thank you so much. I mean, this has been wonderful. And I love so many of the pearls that you gave throughout. And I know our listeners will appreciate it. Are there any last minute comments you want to make?
I'm just so happy we did it. If somebody is contemplating it, just do it. You'll never regret it. And for some people, I understand it could be cost prohibitive. But I understand that if they reach out, just like we said before about doing it and finding a way that works for you to be able to do it, it's the best investment anyone can make, because it wasn't just about her. Our whole family. I mean, she's closer with her brother because he's more understanding of her now. She's closer with her friendships. She was able to even communicate to her friends. At the end of last year, there was some kind of a fun games day in school that got a little competitive for everybody. And there was some friendship fight that occurred. And she decided to sit with her teacher and talk to them about it. Got loud, it got hot, it got crowded. And I shut down a little bit because her friends didn't understand her shutdown and what that looked like, because they had met her after she had come so far. But it encouraged her to be honest and open and vulnerable with her friends and say, listen, this is what happened to me. I was not really aware either until I went home and reflected a little bit, but this is what I need from you. If I ever fall into that pit again, as my friends, I might need you to remind me to take a break, or we'll talk about it later. And then they opened up to her about their feelings and some of the things that bother them about themselves or trouble they have, and what can she do as a friend, and turned into this beautiful conversation they had. So her self-awareness that she got from camp, the confidence that she got to express her to other people what she goes through, it wasn't even something she's embarrassed about or wants to hide. She actually was upset that I'm on the podcast and not her when I told her about it. I want to talk about it, Mom. She's so proud of how far she's come, because really, as a baby, she was born and just would see new faces and not react at all. It wasn't anything that happened. There wasn't a trigger. It was just, that's how she always was. And to come as far as she has from her always being like this was a miracle.
So Jenny, no, this is great. And I'm glad you shared all that you shared, about your experience and about how she's doing. First of all, she can be on our panel
Okay.
virtually. So I'll tell Lisa Marie to reach out to you. And for listeners that are considering possibility of going to Communicamp, we do offer a pretty hefty sliding fee scale for those in need. So we don't want finances to get in the way. And I wish we could do it all for nothing, but until someone can pay for the school and the staff and the
Right.
supplies, I mean, you got to charge.
Right. If you think about all the staff that you have and the facility and all of that, I mean, it's clearly not this whole like extra that's going to something they can't see. It is.
No, for sure. But I want our listeners to know, because there
Yeah.
are families that, gosh, I'd like to go, but I can't afford it. And honestly, if you qualify, which most do, if they're really like, we don't want anyone to struggle, right?
Absolutely.
Whatever we can to help a family attend,
Yeah.
for sure. And we offer some grants and scholarships.
Right. And I remembered that, and then that's why I said I'm sure there's a way that just how being nervous and you don't want to do something because you're nervous, but we can make this work.
Yeah.
I know that the Smart Center will help people make it work.
Yeah, we do our best to help families, but
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm hoping that Emily can either come to camp with you or be on the panel virtually, because families would love to hear from her, and it would give her such confidence to know she can do that now. But if she comes to camp, she can work with the little kids, read them stories, play games. I don't know how far are you from Philly?
We're about 2 hours.
Okay,
Not bad.
well, maybe you'll come one day.
I would love to come back. It really was great, and to come back on the other side of it
Exactly.
It's just so that other parents can see there's another side.
Yes, there is absolutely another side, and there you guys are. Please be sure to tell Emily I am so proud of her for all that she's done, taking the skills and implementing them, and that she's a real hero, because a lot of kids would look up to her, and because, wow, you did it. You're on that other side. I'm looking up to you. And that's such a confidence builder for her too, to know that, because she had to work, right? She worked to get there.
And there were counselors who told them that they used to be selective mute, and that's why they're counselors now. And I remember her talking about that when we'd go back to the room, and she would say, wow, Mom, but they're helping other people with it. And that was such an inspiration to her. So the whole way the program is set up, I can think of nothing that needs to be different. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm spending too much time on it, but even how you have the groups, the green group for certain ages, the blue group for other ages, and then you encouraged us to have lunch together as parents so that we can talk and share. That was also life-changing to hear. We've all had the same experience. Okay, well, now what can we do? And then when we got to talk in those groups, that's what made it more comfortable to reach out to the other mom and say, let's take them out to dinner tonight and have them practice together. I think parents really need to take advantage of the fact that camp ends at the time that it ends, so that you can go and have freestyle practice. And then the next day, some parents would talk about those experiences in the parent forum. Okay, we went to the restaurant, but my kid got a little glitchy. What could I have done? And, hearing about that was so helpful. And there was something else a parent had asked about when your child is practicing, like with the cashier, but the cashier doesn't really return it, or it's awkward or uncomfortable. Somebody had said, well, it's a good learning opportunity for them that adults need some help too. And not everybody out there is going to be this great communicator. So you can say, look, we tried, but maybe they're not on the bridge, right? Just like you. And then building that compassion in them for other people, because they have to be compassionate for themselves, but also remember, maybe that other person is struggling a little too. And I don't have to have these high expectations. So that's why I keep coming back to that parent session, because I learned so much hearing that. And now I take that nugget that I heard that other parent say, and I can say it to both of my kids, even the one who's not selective mute. I can say, everybody has their challenges, right? I mean, we took it in so many different directions when we went home.
Oh, I'm so happy. And I always say no two camps are the same, because you never know what questions people are going to ask in the audience, which will lead you down a whole discussion path. So, that matching you with similar age children is called Communicomfort. It's part of our Communicomfort process. But I thank you, and please tell Emily how proud I am of her, and I look forward to seeing you at a Communicamp.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, have a wonderful day, okay?
Thanks, you too. Thank you for having me on, and I wish everybody out there the best of luck.
And educate those in the school to selective mutism.
I do every chance I get.
Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
If you have questions on anything covered in this podcast episode, we want to answer them. Please head to selectivemutismcenter.org/ask DRE. And we'll do our very best to answer them in upcoming podcast episodes, Smart Center newsletters, and on social media. Thank you.